everyone, and welcome to our first bedtime story time. Every day I thought I could read you either a book if I've got a short one, or I brought home so many chapter books from school of the ones that I was telling you guys that I wanted to read, but we haven't had time. So I did not bring home Harry Potter at this point, but I did bring home some other ones just because I don't want, hopefully we can get everyone on our blog, but just in case, I wouldn't be fair to continue with our story without having everyone present. So in case you didn't know, March is Women's History Month, so we're moving on from Black history to celebrate our Black trailblazers to now focusing on women who, as we know from some of our texts in school, have definitely been marginalized, which means they've been treated unfairly throughout history. So one of your favorites from Black History Month was Katherine Johnson. So I brought home this book, Katherine Johnson, You Should Meet, to tell a little bit more about her story. We know that she passed away last month, but I know that a lot of us were excited to read this in school, so I thought that I'd read some of it to you now. We'll see how far we get, and then maybe we'll make it a two-parter because even though it's a ready-to-read book, there is still a lot of text there for us. So tuck yourselves in, get ready. We're going to learn about Katherine Johnson, the female Black African-American trailblazer. There are 5 chapters and then but wait, there's more. Introduction. What is your favorite subject in school? Have you ever thought about why you like it so much? Have you ever wondered what kind of a career you might have someday that involves your favorite subject? You should meet Katherine Johnson. From the time she was a very little girl, Katherine loved math, and she knew why too. It was hard, she said, remembering doing math in school. But when you got it, you got it. I had to work for it. But there was a right and a wrong, and you knew when you got there. Another thing Katherine knew was that she would definitely someday find a job that involved math. But even she never imagined that her math skills would help the U.S. put the first man on the moon. Did I do a good job of that? It'll be a learning experience for us on how to get this to work with the camera. Chapter 1. A Family to Count On. On August 26, 1918, Katherine Johnson was born in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. She was the youngest of 4 children. Her father owned a farm, and her mother had been a teacher. Ever since she could remember, Katherine was interested in learning about almost anything. She couldn't wait to be old enough to start elementary school. Before then, she followed her siblings to school and tried to go in with them. That's like our classroom almost every morning with all of your siblings. We got Ivan, Lelosa, Reese. Who else do we have? Most of all, Katherine loved to count. She counted family members, dishes, the number of steps from home to school, and so much more. Everything is math, Katherine said. Katherine believed she got her gift for numbers from her father. Even though her father had only completed the 6th grade, Katherine said he was the smartest man she ever knew. He could look at a tree and know how many boards of wood he could get out of it, she said. He could solve any math problem, too. Before she turned 6, Katherine finally started school. Because she could already read, she skipped 1st grade. She would skip 5th grade, too. In school, Katherine always had her hand in the air to ask questions. Her teachers encouraged her. Each night, Katherine and her siblings did their homework seated around a big table. After I finished mine, I'd help them with theirs, she recalled. When Katherine was a little girl, most African Americans did not go to school beyond 8th grade. They went to work to help their families. At the time, the country had also had a history of racial segregation. That means that there were many separate things for African Americans and white Americans, including schools. Katherine's hometown did not even have a high school for African Americans. Katherine's father, however, was determined that all of his children would go to high school and to college too. When Katherine's eldest brother, Charles, was ready for high school, Katherine's father moved the entire family 120 miles away to Institute, West Virginia. What a sacrifice for his family. Institute had a high school for African Americans, and Catherine's mother and father made sure all their children graduated from it. Catherine's parents are in an illustration right there. Catherine, her siblings, and her mother spent each school year in the town of Institute. Catherine's father stayed in White Sulphur Springs to take care of the farm. Because Catherine had skipped 2 grades, she started high school when she was just 10. She became a college freshman at 15. Most people start college when they're around 18 years old. Wow. Good for her. Chapter 2. Math, Catherine's #1 love. Catherine found it very exciting to be a student at West Virginia State College. There seemed to be countless classes she wanted to take. She especially loved French and thought she wanted to graduate with a degree in French, but she still loved math too. Then one day she ran into Mrs. Lacey, a math teacher she knew from back home. Mrs. Lacey insisted that Catherine sign up for her class. Mrs. Lacey made Catherine realize she wanted to concentrate on her math skills and graduate with a degree in math. STEM! We got a STEM pioneer. I was just as fascinated with college math as I had been with high school math, Catherine remembered. She decided to major in math and French. Usually people only choose one major. Like I majored in Spanish and didn't do anything else. Catherine took every single math class the college offered. One of her other math professors, W.W. Schifflin-Clater, even created a couple of new classes just for her. He told Catherine, "You would make a good research mathematician." Catherine asked him, "What does a research mathematician do?" Mr. Clater answered, "You do research in mathematics." Research means to study materials in order to confirm facts and research new conclusions. Catherine asked, "Well, where do you get a job doing that?" His reply was, "That's going to be your problem, but I'm going to have you ready." Catherine was ready by the time she graduated with honors in 1937 at the age of 18. It was difficult at this time, however, for many African Americans, especially for women, to find good jobs. The only good jobs for college-educated African American women at the time were teaching or nursing jobs. Definitely one of those stereotypical situations. When I graduated from Butler, I was 22. So she was 4 years younger than most people are when they graduate from college. After a few months, Catherine got her first job. She taught French and piano to elementary school children. At her father's urging, she went to graduate school too. During this time, Catherine also got married and started a family of her own. In 1952, Catherine heard that the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, a government agency in Newport News, Virginia, was hiring African American female research mathematicians. Within a week, she and her family moved to Newport News. Catherine immediately applied for a job at, it's NACA, which I think turns out to be NASA, but I keep wanting to say NACA, which it's not. She found out that all the jobs for the coming year had already been filled. So Catherine became a substitute teacher and did other work too. Then, the following year, NACA offered her a job. Catherine was thrilled. She was finally going to find out what a research mathematician did. Chapter 3. A Computer in a Skirt. Catherine started at NACA in June 1953. The agency was dedicated to flight research. Among other things, NACA engineers had developed the first aircraft that could fly faster than the speed of sound. NACA's research work required a lot of complex math. In 1953, electronic computers were not generally used, so research mathematicians, who were often called computers, did the math that the engineers needed. Plus, keep in mind at that time there were not lots of computers like we have nowadays. They were huge computers. Katherine joined a group of about 12 African American women who were research mathematicians. There was also a group of white American women research mathematicians. The two groups worked and ate separately until the civil rights movement that had started in the 1950s brought to an end to racial... I guess I'm ready for bed, guys. The two groups worked and ate separately until the civil rights movement that had started in the 1950s brought an end to racial segregation in 1964. So there she was with her friends, the other black women, but wasn't allowed to eat with the white women. At NASA, Katherine was finally able to see firsthand what a research mathematician did, and she loved it. You had big data sheets with maybe 15 or 20 columns across and 25 lines down, she explained, and you solved those all the way across for days. It was fascinating. Research mathematicians sometimes left the group and worked full-time with engineers on a specific project. When the project was done, they returned to the group. Shortly after she arrived, Katherine was sent to work full-time on flight research projects. The engineers quickly became impressed by Katherine's math skills, as well as her interest in learning as much about the project as she could. Working on the project, Katherine did what she always did. She asked a lot of questions. She knew that the more she understood about the project, the better her contribution to it would be. "There is no such thing as a dumb question," Katherine always said. "It's dumb if you don't ask it." Because of her intelligence, curiosity, and upbeat attitude, Katherine never returned to the group of research mathematicians. She was requested on many special projects. Katherine was a valued member of NASA when the agency turned its focus to space exploration in the 1950s. The United States and the Soviet Union were then the two most powerful countries in the world. The Soviet Union was a former federation of communist republics occupying the northern half of Asia and part of Eastern Europe. Its capital and largest city was Moscow. However, each wanted to be number one, and that included being the first nation to explore space. In 1958, NASA became the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA as it's known today. Its efforts became devoted to what was called the space race. Little did Katherine know at the time just how far she, NASA, the United States, and the entire world would go. And all thanks to her. Friends, I think it's my bedtime. It looks like we will start with chapter 4 tomorrow, called Katherine Takes Off. And we'll also finish the book. So we'll also read chapter 5, An Infinite Contribution. And the last part of the book, which is called But Wait, There's More. So tuck yourselves into bed, have a good night's rest, and be sure to check the blog in the morning so that you know what all you can do tomorrow, what you must do, and then the things that you may do. And I'll add some extra fun bonuses as well for using the blog. I think that we'll probably try to do a Kahoot challenge with the class. We'll see. So have a good night, get some rest, and I will see you guys tomorrow.